So you guys may have seen this early yesterday morning. There was a stabbing in Brooklyn, New York at a Chabad house. And it's actually not getting a lot of mainstream coverage, which I think is kind of interesting. So let's take a look.
Throw it, throw it. Step away, go over here. Hands up, put your hands up. Stand over here. Stand up, hands up.
מה קרה שם? אתה ישבת עם נוטי? הוא נגע בנוטי?
Stay with me. Stay away from the knife right now, man. I'm not. Are you gonna arrest me? Hey!
Oh, putain. Oh, il y a un coup de boule. Pas vu, ils l'ont tiré dessus.
Okay, so just to be clear, what you're seeing there is after the stabbing. So 22-year-old Levi Rosenblatt was stabbed by Calvin Peters, 49. Calvin obviously is the one who got shot. He is dead. He did die later in the hospital. Mayor Bill de Blasio, New York City mayor, basically said the cops did the right thing. So I don't want to get into the minutia of all this stuff. But first, I just want to start with, are you guys just totally sick of seeing these things? We are in a rash of just seeing everything all the time, and now we're seeing plenty of fallout from all these videos too. But how desensitized are you becoming to these kind of videos?
I mean, I feel like a lot of people are becoming desensitized because you keep seeing it everywhere. And I feel like in this particular case, the cop did the right thing because he was coming at him with a knife and he had just stabbed someone.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of backlash right now with cops after dealing with all the Ferguson stuff and all the stuff dealing with that. So people are really angry with cops. And I read a lot of the comments under this article, and people were like, why didn't the cop use martial arts to try to stop him? And I'm like, he was running at you with a knife that he just used to stab someone in the head.
Yeah, so that part I also think is interesting. Well, first off, how desensitized are you feeling about this stuff in general?
Well, I generally don't watch them. This is the first time I saw it. You sent us the article ahead of time, but I didn't actually watch the video. And I think some people feel that way. Some people do maybe enjoy watching this, but I'm glad it's happening. I've got to be honest. I'm glad that people are taking out their cell phones and taking video, because even though we've seen, unfortunately, recently, that those videos don't necessarily always change the outcome of a grand jury trial. At least we know that there is evidence in place. At least we know that in certain situations where there could be excessive use of force, where things that used to happen kind of behind closed doors are now out in the light, individuals can kind of be a part of that justice process. Yeah.
Do you guys think it's important to sometimes see the ones of these where the cops do the right thing also? Because first off, I don't understand why they don't have tasers in a situation like that. Like, it seems to me if you're 5 feet away from the guy, or at least shoot his leg. But I'm not going to judge what they do because I'm not a cop. And in this case, yes, he had a knife and he just stabbed someone. So there certainly was imminent threat. But do you think the reason that a video like this doesn't get picked up is it doesn't quite fit the narrative that we have going now? And in general, the media is good with one narrative for a while, and they really like something that just reinforces the narrative, no matter what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Actually, a couple of my friends the other day on Facebook were posting videos of people attacking cops for no reason, just walking up to cops and, you know, calling them names and throwing chairs at them. And he posted it with the caption saying, you know, this happens too. Because I feel like only one side of the story is being shown a lot of the time. So this story maybe didn't hit as well with the media because it wasn't villainizing cops as much.
Gosh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's awful. I have a different take, and maybe my take is a little more boring or not as sensational, but I see this as a local news story. You know, it's New York City, just like in Los Angeles. Recently a guy was wielding a knife on Hollywood Boulevard. He got shot by police. It was an open and shut case. Local violence, unless you see usually, unfortunately, a mass shooting, or unless you see something with like kind of extenuating circumstances like excessive use of force, it usually doesn't get national attention. It would be really depressing if the national news was constantly covering local stories. And I think this is just a kind of an open and shut case. I mean, we all see the evidence. It was, the cops were doing their jobs.
Yeah, and I totally hear you on that. And that's why I never watch the local news, because as depressing as the national news is, the local news is endless, this kind of stuff. I thought this one, just in light of the narrative we have going on now, and there's a hate crime element to it, I just thought it would have been picked up more, so I was a little bit surprised. But what do you guys think about the taser thing? Like, why is that? Like, I know everyone's big on cops should have cameras now. That's like the new thing. But what about the taser?
Yeah,
why
and
don't
what
more
about-
cops have tasers?
Didn't they used to have those things that were like antennas?
Where they could actually,
where you could whip them out. They were very long,
So, like-
and you could like hit somebody in their legs to knock them down, or knock the knife out of their hand.
I don't know that they all had it, and I'm sure it depends on precincts and all that kind of stuff. But why is that not even being discussed?
Yeah, or rubber bullets, just something, some like non-lethal force. Because it's true, that guy had a knife, he didn't have a gun. There probably would have been a way if they had the appropriate tools to subdue him. I mean, who knows? I think they were doing their jobs the best of their ability, but if they had better tools, they may have been able to prevent this crime or.
Yeah, I actually heard that too about the Los Angeles guy with a knife. They were saying, why didn't they try to use like some sort of martial arts on him or a taser or something like that? And I understand that to a degree, but you also don't know what other weapons that person might have on them.
Yeah.
They might have a gun.
I mean, martial arts
Also,
is a bit ridiculous.
I'm not sure all our cops are ninjas. But
exactly, like hand-to-hand combat is different than shooting somebody with a beanbag or a rubber bullet or something that might stun them, drop them to their knees so that you could rush in and cuff them. I think that's a different story.
That's where this discussion should be going, about alternate ways to stop bad things.
I also think a discussion, and I hate to extend the conversation, but a discussion about whether or not hate crime legislation is something that should exist is a whole other conversation, because I think there are First Amendment rights that brings up. I used to, as a younger person, not that I'm any less liberal now, I just think I'm more of a constitutionalist
you're getting old
now.
and conservative.
Exactly. No, I just think I'm getting older and more kind of deferential of the Constitution. I worry a little bit about hate crime legislation because I worry about being the thought police.
Yeah, well, I struggle with that too, because yes, clearly in this case, they're not saying it's a hate crime, by the way.
Because
the
this guy
cops
was
are saying
mentally
there isn't,
unstable,
right?
too.
But it seems like if you walk into a place where you know there's going to be Orthodox Jews or Muslims, like that's
and you
not,
yell things like "I'll kill all the Jews."
Yeah, that seems a little hate crimey, as opposed to walking into a drugstore and shooting the guy that's stocking the shelves.
But there are always.
But is that worse? I
There
don't
are
know.
always limits. I mean, isn't any man who does domestic battery and abuse targeting women? At a certain point, where do you draw the line?
Keep in mind, this guy also had bipolar disorder. So.
Exactly.
Right.
So when they're mentally unstable, does the hate crime legislation really make as much sense? I don't know.
And I bet you could probably argue or find out. I bet you there would be empirical proof that most of these people have some sort of mental disorder. So
yeah, most people don't kill for fun.
Yeah.
Usually there's some sort of driving force in it, and a lot of times it has to do with mental health.